I used to joke that like Rio Bravo was my litmus test for a girl to watch. You had to appreciate Rio Bravo, or else I couldn't appreciate her. I don't think that was ended up being the case. All right.
The thing about Rio Bravo that I thought was so, I loved it so much, was at some, there was a point in my life, it was 100% hands down my favorite movie. And my whole thing, this is way before I'd ever had a girlfriend, and years before I would ever have a girlfriend. Unfortunately, I was in my 20s during this time. And my whole thing was, if ever I liked a girl and we started like seeing each other a little bit, I would show her Rio Bravo. And she better like it. And I actually almost got a headache just even trying to contemplate how many times I've seen this movie. I can only remember the first time I saw it, which was about 5 years old, where I saw it with my great-grandmother. And I loved it, and she loved it, and it was funny because I actually discovered it much later once I got into Howard Hawks myself. I just kind of discovered him on my own, like around, I guess about like 17. And then I watched Rio Bravo, and I was knocked out and I go, wait a minute, that's the movie I saw with Mama. And, to me, one of the things about Rio Bravo that's so wonderful is there's all kinds of things in it that's really great, but to me, yes, it's one of my favorite, it's one of the greatest Westerns, yes, it's one of the greatest Hawks films, it's one of the greatest John Wayne movies, but it also fits into another genre, because I'm always about cutting movies up and putting them into subgenres. It's one of the great hangout movies. There are certain movies that you hang out with the characters so much that they actually become your friends. And it's a really rare quality to have in a film. And it doesn't rarely happen, and those movies are usually quite long, because it actually takes that long of a time to get past a movie character where you actually feel you know the person and you like them. And Rio Bravo is maybe one of the greatest hangout movies of all time. When it's over, they're your friends. And every time, and the thing is, what was so good about seeing it again and again and again is now they're already your friends whenever you watch it. The critic Robin Wood out of Britain said that in his estimation, that if there was ever one movie to justify the existence of Hollywood commercial cinema, it would be Rio Bravo. One of the things I loved about Howard Hawks so much was, growing up without a father, Howard Hawks actually had very definite ideas about manhood and what a man should be and rules of conduct and stuff like that. But not based on a class system or anything or propriety, but just, what is expected of a man. And kind of discovering him in the way I did, without having a male influence around my house or anything, I bought into that, and I started adopting his ideas of what a man was. He just helped me, kind of guided me through my life as like a surrogate, out there father somewhere.
Easy Rider, starring the aforementioned Dennis Hopper, Peter Fonda, Jack Nicholson. Well, Easy Rider is, when Columbia threw out their catalog of films to choose for the 60s, the du jour one that, of course, I'm going to choose is going to be Easy Rider. It's might be the single greatest example of 60s cinema in almost every way, because of both the culture it projects, the aesthetic it projects, and just even the idea that finally a movie and the counterculture hooked up with each other in a way that the people of that culture actually accepted Easy Rider.
Yeah.
Because I think before that, even though biker films had existed, and Peter Fonda in particular, and Roger Corman's Wild Angels, which started the whole biker film subgenre that this is officially a part of, even though it's not coming from the Hells Angels point of view. There still always was an aspect of an older generation who doesn't quite understand it, making these movies for a younger generation that are ultimately too hip to buy Hollywood's version of it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a common case in a lot of Hollywood movies where they try to capitalize on a movement, or a youth movement in particular, and try to regurgitate a movie for that movement. It's usually seen as the fraud that it usually is, not always, but usually is. But that was not the case with Easy Rider. One, it wasn't a studio movie. BBS made it. They had an output deal with Columbia, but they were able to truly do their own thing. So because Dennis Hopper was able to kind of do what he wanted, he created a new type of movie, and it caught on with audiences because it felt like, oh, hey, this is a movie for us by people like us. It's talking to us. It's not interpreting for us.
Right.
And it's not talking down to us. I think Alice's Restaurant fits into that category as well. Positively, the two early Greenwich Village De Palma movies, Greetings and Hi Mom, absolutely feel like they were made by the people of the counterculture for said culture. But what makes Easy Rider different from the rest was it's just incredible, phenomenal success. An interesting thing also about Easy Rider, before we get into watching the film, is Easy Rider probably is one of the most specific movies probably ever released by a Hollywood studio that is like specific to its era. It captures the 60s in a way that's tangible. And so almost in a way, if you're trying to describe to somebody the 60s in terms of movies, you could show them Easy Rider and never have to show them anything else.
Yeah.
But there's an interesting thing about that because of that, Easy Rider kind of goes in and out of fashion. There are times in the 50 years since Easy Rider has been made that it looks more dated than it does. Like today, I don't think Easy Rider looks incredibly dated, but in the 80s, it looked very dated when you watched Easy Rider. It seemed like a document of its time, and this was not its time. But then in the 90s, it didn't look so dated.
And especially...
And now it doesn't look so
No.
dated. I think Easy Rider is part of a group of what I call American outlaw movies that were all made by directors that made a special kind of movie their own way without not much help from outside forces, and kind of forced the movie together their way. And then, much to everybody's surprise, that movie did well nationwide, all right, where it became very popular in a way that couldn't be predicted, but not like a Los Angeles success or like a New York success, like for instance the De Palma movies we mentioned before, Greetings and Hi Mom. That didn't do well all over the place, but it did very well in New York. But there was a group of movies that actually kind of came out like what I'm talking about, and they actually went nationwide. They actually did well, eventually nationwide, and that and I think that list would include George Romero's Night of the Living Dead. I think it includes Melvin Van Peebles. This is not in any order. Melvin Van Peebles' Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song. It includes Russ Meyer's Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, Tom Laughlin's Billy Jack, and Dennis Hopper's Easy Rider. And Easy Rider, almost like Rosemary's Baby or something, made about something like $30 million back when, that was an astronomical amount. I mean, they would spend, in the 60s, they would spend $2 million or $2.5 million on a movie, and that would be like a lot of money spent on a movie. And if it made $12 million, that was considered fantastic. We did great with that. And then Easy Rider just was just went through the roof. Henry Fonda said, God, Peter made a movie that made almost more money than all my movies put together. There was no expectations, all right? Least of all from Dennis and Peter. They're outlaw movies that these directors made, that they knew what they wanted to do, and they made their kind of movie. And frankly, they were kind of first for their time in almost every aspect. And then they came out and, like an unsigned band that comes out and becomes, and has like the hit of the year. That's what these movies kind of represented. One of the things that was also kind of fascinating about Easy Rider, especially at its time, was one of the things that made the movie commercial, along with the performances, along with the costumes, along with the music, along with all the accoutrement that the film offers, was its ending. Its nihilistic ending, the idea that the characters would die senselessly for no reason whatsoever and just be left there, their blood staining the asphalt. And that became one of the commercial aspects of the movie, because it kind of promoted a new view amongst young people in America. Well, you can't win.
Yeah.
It was a very nihilistic time in America when it came to thinking about the America we had grown up in, the America we had been told what America is, the apple pie image. And Easy Rider kind of flies in the face of that. In fact, the most famous scene is the campfire scene where they dissect it. For your freedom, yeah.
Yeah.
And you go, well, isn't it what freedom's all about, man? Well, that's what they say.
Yes.
It's all about. But when they meet a person who's really free,
Right.
that they can't have that.
Yes.
And so, and this would get worse as the 70s go on with Watergate. All of our institutions we had been taught were all found to be wormy and full of wormholes, and that even became a big thing in cinema itself, where it was like, to some degree or another, almost the reason to do historical pictures is to show the fraud that historical pictures in Hollywood had been up until now. Mm-hmm. With Easy Rider, it's a worldview. It's a worldview, and in a strange way, if you think about it, it's, I hadn't thought about this before until just now. In a weird way, the ending is actually what makes Easy Rider have a story. I don't even know if you could say Easy Rider has a story until the ending.
Yeah. Because
the ending makes what's happened
Right.
before a story.
Yeah.
Well, it makes them martyrs. In particular, they have to get killed by that especially ugly redneck. Almost what makes it a story and what makes it martyrs is that those guys kill them. Mm-hmm. If they were just hit by a big rig, that came out of nowhere when they were crossing the highway, well, that's not an ending to their journey. That's just an accident. And if they were killed by cops, well, that's almost too much of a pointed.
Right.
That's okay. Now we got to make bad guys. But in a weird way, it's like those hippies are truly representing the old America. I don't think it was, actually. I mean, I think it probably was for the first few audiences, but then I actually think people knew it. I think at a certain point, it became so successful. I think people at a certain point knew it going in, that was going to how it was going to be, and because their friends told them about it.
It's like we're almost out of beer.
Don't try to think or I'll shoot the shit out of you.
Pick me, all of you.
There's some spooky stuff going on a dollar bill, man. I mean, and it's green, too.
Rick Linklater's Dazed and Confused, I think maybe the greatest, maybe along with Rio Bravo, the greatest Hangout movie ever made. One of the things about Dazed and Confused that's just so terrific, that is, you could every time you watch it, if you watch it every 3 years or 4 years, the characters are like your friends, and you're hanging out with them again, seeing your old friends.
He actually came and visited me on the set after he had just finished up Dazed and Confused. He visited me on the set of Pulp Fiction, and then the movie opened up, and it was that and Carlito's Way were the only two movies I saw at the theaters while I was making Pulp Fiction. It's like I couldn't concentrate on any of the movies, but I wanted to see Rick's movie and I needed to see the new De Palma movie. So those were the two that I saw. But over the course of the years, and not just because it actually follows my time, more or less, my era, the 70s, growing up, is Dazed and Confused has actually meant a lot to me. And it means a lot to a lot of people. I mean, I don't think there's probably any other movie you can think of that, at least now, 3 different generations of college students have all seen multiple times.
I would like to dedicate this first lick to your mother. Fucker.
My favorite little memory, to put it to me, as far as Dazed and Confused was concerned, is about 11 years ago, I went to Amsterdam to jumpstart the writing of a script. At the height of my loneliness, I went to a video store called Mondo Video that had cool shit in Amsterdam, and I rented Dazed and Confused. And I took it to my hotel room and I watched it. And all of a sudden, I wasn't lonely anymore. Because I'd seen the movie so often, and one of the things that I loved about the movie, and I like hangout movies anyway, it's a real hangout movie. and you really get to know all the characters, the little ones, the big ones, all of them. You really get to know this whole community of people in the course of this film. And that goes beyond just about it being in the 70s. It goes beyond about it being in Texas. It just goes on to a human experience. And those people have become my friends over these last 20 years since that movie has existed. And at the height of my loneliness, I watched Dazed and Confused, and I wasn't lonely anymore because I was with my friends.